Universal is a word that's been thrown around quite a bit in development circles. And universal, really simply put, means essentially an application that you can execute, that you can put anywhere in your architecture, and it still works and it still runs. And generally speaking, in the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a huge trend in JavaScript development towards saying, well, hey, you know, we should be able to run the exact same code, run the exact same lines of code within the web browser that we do within our server that's actually handling, let's say, the delivery of data to our website, and also to be able to actually work with that in other settings as well, in other environments, right? So basically take out the sort of notion that this code has to be run in this particular place. And that's causing a huge sea change and paradigm shift in how we think about CMS from the software development perspective and from the perspective of architecture. Universal JavaScript meant for the first time that you can actually take code and pretty much run it anywhere that you need to, and pieces of it anywhere that you need to, but still have a very cohesive understanding of what's happening ultimately within that architecture. I'm arguing as well that universally actually applying that universal paradigm to content makes a lot of sense too, right? If you're delivering content over to, let's say, a completely separate website that is not running on your content management system, but is running on a separate technology like React, for example, which is something a lot of folks might have heard
like
of.
a microsite.
Like a microsite, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, a throwaway
so,
site.
like, in other words, to reframe this for like a site administrator, a site manager, you have your main site that has a whole bunch of content on it, but you also run a handful of microsites that are specific to, like, you know, maybe a campaign that you're running, or an event, or, you know, some kind of a special, or a you know, sweepstakes or something. And so you want to push a certain, like a particular piece of content to this microsite, and so...
Yes. And so, by the way, also, and I think a lot of the ways in which I think people think about microsites is relevant here too, right? Because oftentimes the technology you build your microsite in is not going to be the same technology you build your, you know, your mission critical website in. And the reason for that is it's a quick one-off. It's something that you want to maybe do some experimentation with your engineering team. But that doesn't mean that microsite and the content that is in that microsite shouldn't be as editable and as previewable as the content on your mission critical site. Right. And so I think there's a lot of really interesting emerging things here. And I'm going to obviously toot my company's own horn as well here. As VP of Product at dotCMS, we are working on something called Edit Mode Anywhere, which allows you basically to edit pretty much anywhere your content ends up, to edit that within the context of your CMS, just as if you were to edit a website that was being governed by and controlled by dotCMS. And I think we're seeing this really interesting emergence of, let's say, CMSs begin to leach into these territories that they really were very, very scared of approaching before. I've certainly seen this quite a bit as well, where they're saying, well, hey, you know, this is the reality now, right? People are going to build microsites and whatever they want to build them in, but we have to still honor our commitment and our contract with our customers to serve them preview, serve them editorial interfaces, and so on and so forth. You see Builder.io, for example, going in this direction as well, where they're saying, well, hey, it doesn't matter what you build your microsite in or what you build any of your sites in, you should still be able to edit everything just as if it was something that we were deploying and rendering and responsible for within the context of our infrastructure.
Right.
Needless to say, though, I think
to back up for just a moment, sorry to interrupt, but just to make sure I understand. So in this example of a microsite where you have a piece of content, it originates on your main mission critical site, but you also want to syndicate it out to this microsite. It runs on a different CMS entirely, or a different front end, or a different piece of technology. But this idea of universal content management, this approach, this philosophy says, well, you should have the ability to edit it on that other platform, on that other piece of technology. You shouldn't have to go back to the main website to edit that piece of technology, and you should be able to preview it on that microsite before it goes live, seeing it in the context of that microsite, what it looks like on that microsite. Now, does that also mean that when you edit it on that microsite, are you changing it also on the main site? Is it still the canonical piece of content and you're changing it universally throughout? Or are you saying that but Okay, so you can change in one place, but maybe you also have the opportunity to branch that content.
You could also, yes, of course. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And
Okay.
I think that I think really points to, I think, where, when I say universal content management, what I mean is, in this former landscape, right, of just headless CMS, right? When the headless CMSs first emerged, right, you could build a microsite, but then suddenly, to preview content or to edit that content, you had to go all the way back into the CMS. And,
Yep.
Suddenly there was this completely, there was this black box basically, which was this preview that you couldn't preview anymore, right? This application that you can't actually look into anymore. And so the idea that I think is really beginning to spread, and this is the reason why I think headless CMS as a moniker is starting to end as a trend, is because these CMSs are actually, and I know that this is going to be lost on some of the audience, but we're seeing a bit of a remonolithicization of the CMS. And what I mean by that is these headless CMSs are realizing, well, the customers that are going to choose us, right, they've already chosen us, right? But we need to somehow figure out how to reach those customers that are still working in these very, in their old architectures, because that's what they're used to. They're used to preview and all that sort of thing.